People have wondered about the cost, the expense of sort of designer cars, which is what these are. The patients are, each individual patient, a car has to be made. Is there a possibility of off-the-shelf treatments? There is, I think. I think people have done that with NK cells. And I think that it's quite possible that's going to happen. I think we're going to have to get around HLA barriers and a variety of other obstacles to this. But I think down the road, as people start working on and developing their own cars, that's going to be one of the goals, because that's going to clearly make it cheaper. I do think that once we make our own, if say there's institutions making their own cars, and it's not that difficult to do now. There are instruments that help you do it in just in hours, or maybe even in minutes. But I think the scale up that you need, and also the clinical trials that have to be done, can be very expensive for single institutions to do. Pharma with 3 fairly large, even reasonable sized companies like Kite and Juno were eventually bought by bigger companies, because the cost of producing these, the cost of doing the clinical trials, the cost of scaling up require the building of manufacturing plants. And until that process is simplified, I think we're sort of going to be in the same era that we've been in, but maybe down the road, that's something that can be looked at.
If it's going to happen, it's going to be a ways away, I think. I think we have to first traverse the inpatient to outpatient ability to give CAR T cells. I think right now it lives in the FACT-accredited transplant centers from the CAR T cell standpoint. Now, if in the future there's a construct that has equal efficacy and a toxicity profile which is reminiscent to outpatient chemotherapy regimens that we give comfortably, and we can get a CRS and a neurotoxicity management plan in place, and patient understanding, if that were to occur, they need to be seen. Then anything is possible from that standpoint. But I think we still have to tackle the being able to do lymphodepletion and CAR T cells as an outpatient close to a center that has done CAR T cell therapy before. I'm all in this for patient access. Yes. So if there are patients that cannot get CAR T cells because they cannot travel 400 miles to the nearest CAR T cell place, I think we have to better understand better ways to, at least right now, get those patients the ability to get to a CAR T cell center that has the ability to give CAR T cells now, and we'll continue to try to expand the radius of people that we can treat, and then education of those people then in the community about CAR T cells, because definitely there are, the circle comes back, whereas a community oncologist sends me a CAR T cell patient. I take the patient through their CAR T cell therapy, and they stay for a certain period of time after their CAR T cell therapy before they return home. Now they're returning home into the hands of their community oncologist, but you can be certain that I'm talking to the community oncologist about, did they have cytokine release syndrome? Did they have neurotoxicity? And here are how we managed it, or here are what their counts are. If this were to occur, we're educating them on what CRS and neurotoxicity looks like, and then the strategies that we use. And the strategy that is we're accessible. At least I'm accessible, and I want to be reached out to if one of my patients is having neurotoxicity or CRS after they return to the community. So if they get that level of education, and then there's a construct that's out there that could provide the efficacy and the safety that allows for it, if that time comes, we'll go after it then. I definitely think if you look at the curves that we're helping a population of patients who otherwise the likelihood was that the next line of therapy wasn't going to work. But it doesn't mean that we're done. We still have a lot of work to do to try and either improve upon CAR T cells with other adding on additional therapies to make the CAR T cell better, or trying to manipulate the CAR T cell construct itself to make the CAR T cells stronger without increasing the toxicity profile in parallel. But I think in the end, we have to still think about the patients that are out there. And I come back to patient access. And if we can find a way to increase the exposure about the fact that diffuse large B-cell lymphoma is concerning, but there are options. And if we can get more patients and more providers out there to realize that relapsed refractory diffuse large B-cell lymphoma has 2 approved constructs for relapsed refractory diffuse large B-cell lymphoma, that there are clinical trials out there using CAR T cells and using CAR T cells and trying to improve upon them, referral at least gives us the option to discuss CAR T cells. And they may not be a CAR T cell candidate. And we may be able to make recommendations about what the next line of therapy could be. Or they may be available or eligible for a different clinical trial if CAR T cells is not the thing for their disease and for that patient. So I really implore trying to find new ways to reach out to patients and their providers at non-CAR T cell centers on just, give us, in some ways, give us a call. And we'll find it may not be my institution. I may be able to say, I have a friend and a colleague here, it's 300 miles closer, here's their number. I always say that I have no ego in this. I'm trying to help I want to do the best for the patient, and I think we can continue to get better in the CAR T cell space, but still need to acknowledge that relapsed refractory diffuse large B-cell lymphoma remains an unmet medical need.